So the year 2020, in a manner of speaking, provides the right background at which many folks are assessing Nigeria in the new year 2021. And on Broad Street, the annual ritual of economic and markets continue even as we step into the second month of February. Earlier today, Comercio Partners held a virtual conference on the economy, markets, and the risks. That was the title, with a lineup of high-profile speakers, such as Dr. Dunyi Salami, the chairman of the Presidential Economic Advisory Council. Let's chat a bit to some of the issues as we bring on Steve Osho, is the co-managing partner at Comercio Partners. Good evening, Steve. It's good to see you. Yeah, give me a broad outline of your economic outlook for the year 2021 at Comercio.
Okay, thank you. I think you can really unpack 2021 market outlook without actually looking back to what happened in 2020. And if we piggyback on the event of 2020, which was mostly characterized by, the pandemic issues, that's the health issue that have blown to be a pandemic issues and how that affects the global market in general. We could see that towards the end of last year, as the business began to come back due to a lot of stimulus package that actually been released into the economy, and at the same time, the view or news around vaccination that is going to be coming out in the first quarter of 2021. We saw quite a lot of activities, come back to the market, and that actually, snow dive into what is going to happen in 2021. Talking about the global economy, you've seen a lot of stimulus package released by US. I think in total now we have about 4 trillion, which is going to be, turning to about almost 10 to 11% of their GDP. And if you look at the other advanced economy like UK, you look at Japan, you look at Korea and India, the same thing in terms of stimulus package that has been released has only been in double digits. And the same thing actually happened towards the end of last year, where we see the CBN and the fiscal authority trying to harmonize how they attack or approach the crisis that we have in our hand. And going to 2021, we've not seen much difference. We've seen the accommodative policy and dovish stance from the CBN, and we've seen a kind of harmonization in terms of fiscal policies coming from the federal government in terms to cushion the effect of the pandemic on the economy. So I think going to 2021, that's going to play out. And that's one of the things we actually unpack at the conference today, how the market is going to react, how the market is going to play out, what are the risks that will be involved in the market, what are the benefit that we'll see going into 2021. And we can actually run the 2021 numbers without looking at the budget that was just passed. We'll be talking about over 13 trillion budget, in 2021, which, has about 5.6 deficit numbers and has about 7.9 in terms of revenue. So the questions would be, how do we think the money will flow? How do we think the government is going to achieve all the revenue that they actually have anticipated for 2021? And what do we think the impact will be in the economy generally, considering the fact that inflationary pressure is still there, considering the fact that the economy has actually been going through stagnation because the growth is actually very slow, considering the fact we slided into recession last year, So I think those are the kind of issues that we're going to be looking at into 2021, and those are the kind of things that will shape how the market will behave, whether in fixed income, whether in FX, whether in equity markets in 2021.
Let me just go straight to this point. How much role do you think crude oil will play in our economic recovery process?
I think it's going to be huge, because if you look at in terms of the revenue that's actually been accrued to the federal government, I think oil revenue still, accounts for almost 80 to 85% of our receipt, of USD receipt. So the impact is going to be very huge, which means that if we have the economics actually reflated first quarter of this year to second quarter of this year, if there's slowdown in the spread of the virus, and if the oil price remains at this elevated level at $55 per barrel, I think we're going to see a lot of improvement, and we're going to see the government actually attain the budget they've, the number they've put in the budget for 2020-2021 in terms of revenue that's going to be received from oil proceeds. I think that's going to be very, very huge. In terms of projection, I think we are looking at around 1.8 million per barrel production daily. And if you look at what we did in 2020, I think we fell short by just about 1.79 compared to the number they actually put in the budget in 2020. So the number for 2020, considering where the benchmark has been put at $40 per barrel, means that it's something that is achievable. And from the consensus we've seen from all the oil analysts generally in 2021, we expect the oil price to remain elevated around $55 to $60 by the end of the year. So I think the only challenge that we could see in that area is that once you cross that threshold, you actually could see a lot of production coming from the shale guys. And if that happens, the possibility is that you actually might see clog in supply. But if the OPEC still keeps to the mandate of actually making sure that they cut in productions so that the demand is not really, that the supply is not really outweighing the demand that we have out there, the possibility is there that we're going to have elevated elevated price of oil, and that is a good news for Nigerian budget.
Steve, I keep scratching my head over this particular issue. We spent quite some time talking about economic diversification. Are we making enough progress on this? If not, why are we not making such progress?
Sorry, I didn't get that, Boasin.
Yes, I was talking about economic diversification. So, and I said, we talk about it. It's on the pages of newspapers, it's on the news, and everybody talk about it at every conference and summit. But the question is, are we making enough progress?
Well, from the fiscal side, I think it's nothing that's going to happen overnight. I think it's something that we have to be consistent as a government. It's something that we have to be very sincere and, know how to follow through all the structure, the process we put in place and to increase productivity. I think, and I know that a lot of talk have been around diversification of the economy, looking at the agri sector, looking at mining, looking at transportation, looking at other sectors that actually we could actually, increase the government revenue. Maybe like in the past few years, it's been more of lip service kind of strategy. But in terms of from 2020 going forward, and in the midst of the crisis that that we found ourselves, I think it's been very imminent that the government has to be very deliberate about how to go about this and, pump so much money and encouragement into other sectors. And we've seen that through the central bank policies and central bank, handcuff borrowing into agri sector. We've seen some of those funds, 50 billion, that actually released to support pharmaceutical companies and SMEs. I think we're going to see more of that going into 2021 and beyond. And I think government needs to be very deliberate about this. I think that is only game factor, that's the only change factor that's going to change a lot of things going into 2021 and beyond. Because if you look at the amount of contributions that agri actually can do to your GDP, I think if you look at that basket, it contributes roughly about 25 to 27%.
Yes.
And if you look at the growth that you've seen in agri, 2020 is just below 2%. And we're expecting the growth, the growth on the economy to actually be below 2%, and we're expecting the population growth to be above 2%. So I think it's actually very critical and very important for the government to make sure that diversification actually happens.
A quick one, Steve, in 30 seconds. Give me your market headwinds for 2021. What's your playbook for the currency, for the Naira?
That's very interesting because you use the word playbook. If I'm going to give you the playbook, means that the playbook can change from time to time. So I think what would determine 2021 will be we have a lot of fiscal overhang, which has come from 2020 into 2021. And we have that inflationary pressure, which is still hanging over us. And we still have that negative returns on interest rate, with most of the government bonds trading below inflation. I think that's going to be very important into how we actually harmonize that into 2021. Okay. And the FX policy is going to be very important too into how this is going to play out overall.
Steve, for sure. Thank you so much, co-managing partners at Comercio Partners. We appreciate your time tonight.